Hello, I'm Yizz, and today we're going to talk about white privilege. What is privilege, you ask? I believe in science, logic, and reason, so let's break down this phrase and see what it actually means. White is a word that means European, a race. Privilege means a right, a resource, or an immunity granted as a particular advantage, benefit, or favor to others. Granted here means that it's something given, something bestowed upon another. It's not necessarily something created by choice. Someone can be given a privilege whether they know they have it or not. I think that's an important distinction, and all Western dictionaries share a similar definition. So what is racial privilege then? I have a few ideas. Racial privilege is having expensive $200 shoes when you've never had a job. Racial privilege could be having $300 headphones when you live on public assistance. Racial privilege could also be having a $600 smartphone with a full data plan that you don't get a bill for. Racial privilege is living in a house where you don't have utility bills and you aren't burdened by a food budget because your grocery bill is mostly covered by government assistance programs. Racial privilege is having free health care for you and your family, largely paid for by other races who oftentimes can't afford the same health care for their families. Racial privilege is having multinational corporations and organizations go to bat for your race specifically, and having government institutions or factions therein that specifically serve your race and your race alone on the tax dollars of other races. Racial privilege is having a national college fund for your race and your race alone, which is funded 90% or more by other races. Racial privilege is having news networks that cater specifically to your race by omitting race-based crimes when your race is complicit against other races and creating an entire narrative that makes your race and your race alone seem much more innocent than you actually are. Racial privilege is being able to get into almost any of the aforementioned institutions and universities by your race alone and not merit. Racial privilege is the news media refusing to comment that your race commits 52% of all violent crimes and nearly 100% of interracial rapes, while representing only 10 to 12% of the population. Racial privilege is the ability to protest, march, and riot over anything that angers you, with the support of news media and local law enforcement. Racial privilege is having as many children as you want, regardless of economic status, while knowing that others, primarily of other races, are going to foot the bill for the food, health care, and education of those children. Racial privilege is being able to vote without having to show ID, just because your race and your race alone believes it's unfair to have to provide those things. Racial privilege is the ability to commit arson, vandalism, murder, rape, and theft, as well as tearing down historic monuments, all while receiving support or even praise from news media, prominent politicians, and university professors. Racial privilege is never having to be emotionally or mentally mature, never having to suffer consequences for your bad decisions or the bad decisions of your parents, and always being able to blame your problems on those who provide your privilege. Racial privilege is never having to know you even have it. Racial privilege is being able to make vague demands, and when your impetuous decrees are not met with acceptance and swift action, you start riots and burn your own cities to the fucking ground, knowing that your privilege is going to replace it all on another race's dime. And that is white privilege.